Ahoy hoy, kia ora, good morrow, bold pinheads. I am Hamish Guthrie. I have a really cool little arcade in Wellington called the Old Pinball Shop. And I have a technical background in home automation and geeky sort of stuff like that. And so I've discovered a lot of pain points in running the arcade, and there's a whole bunch of things that I want to try and address through technology and software and hardware. And so Gametoken is going to be the first of my little projects that I'm going to be releasing to the world. This will be an open source project, open source hardware and software. But yes, it is a digital system for adding credits to pinball and arcade games, and it also enables free play by the hour. So just by way of background, the Old Pinball Shop is in the CBD in Wellington. We get a lot of business people just popping in for 10-15 minutes on a break when they can to get some silver ball under their veins. But we also get lots of people visiting for several hours at a time, just wanting to get a really good amount of pinball. And we also get lots of first-time players coming in, either discovering us just where good word of mouth is getting around, or maybe their parents have brought them in saying, hey kids, this is what I used to do when I was your age. Look at me now, this is where it got me. But we've found that for people just starting pinball, it's really tough to get into it and to really understand the whole process of pinball. There's nothing obvious about pinball if you're just playing for the first time. So one of the pain points that we come across is, first of all, people tend not to have tokens or coins these days. If they buy tokens from the counter, they might figure out where to put the token into the coin slot, and sure enough, they'll be pressing the coin reject button next to it a few times, waiting for it to do something. Hit the different buttons on the side, maybe pull the plunger a bit, still waiting for it to do something, not realizing there's a flashing start button right there. Just hit the flashing start button that's right in your face. So let's get into this. This is Roto Dave's house in New Zealand. He has, at this time, was about 120 games in his room, and this was in 2016 for Pincade 9. So this was a series of pinball events up and down the country. There'd be a bunch of us flying from Auckland to Wellington to Christchurch, visiting private collections and public collections, and getting as much pinball as we can over a long weekend as absolutely possible. And we had lots of people from Australia coming down for this as well, so I think there's a good chance a lot of people here would recognize this venue and a lot of these games. But this was really my first experience with a massive scale of free play pinball. And this is frozen, thank you very much. Just the feeling that you get when you got, like you have here, just a massive room full of hundreds of games, and there's no cost to how many times the ball drains. And so if the ball drains on you, no worries at all. It's not 60 cents that just went down the drain. It's 2 minutes of your time that you had fun, and you can hit that start button again at no cost. And so I really want to bring that free play experience to my customers, but I'm acutely aware that a lot of my customers don't have time for 2-3 hours of pinball at a time. They just want to pop in for 10 minutes, and so it's not really fair for us to be charging a flat rate and then have all the games on free play. It makes more sense for us to keep the games on token and coin drop, but I really want to give people that free play option. So that's where Gametoken comes in, and something that I wanted to there's so many games here. I apologize for the shaky camera. Okay, right. This is what they thought turned into a couple of years later. So from my home automation experience, this is Node Red, and if you've done any home automation, particularly with Home Assistant, you might be familiar with this kind of flow-based programming. So this is all the elements of Gametoken in a really messy bunch of Node Red flows. The logic is kind of sound. It does actually do what it's supposed to do, and if you click the right buttons in the right order, it will output a result at the end saying, yes, I've closed a relay. And that relay would be connected to the physical micro switch on the coin door, and so I can say, yes, the software says the relay was closed, and so I know that if the user had done all this stuff, they would now be playing pinball. So taking it from this mess that wouldn't scale very well on a public-facing server and turning it into a real product is what I've been spending most of my spare time for the last couple of years working on. So and this is just going to be a slideshow of a whole bunch of images that I've taken over the years. Lots and lots of experimenting with different displays, different resolutions, different NFC tap and pay modules, relay boards that will give us nice isolated outputs, electrically isolated outputs to the coin mix. So it doesn't matter what sort of voltage is running through the micro switch for the pinball machine. This is just a dry contact that's not going to interrupt that at all. It's just going to simulate the closing of a micro switch. So it's compatible with whatever era of game we plug it into. And we can also plug it straight into a node board pins on a modern Stern if you've got a node board, a cabinet node board or something like that. So it doesn't have to go to the micro switch. We can actually keep it even tidier than that. But yeah, lots of trips to JCar, lots of random parts ordered from AliExpress and little hobbyist stores all over the place. Some really good hobbyist stores online here in Australia, so these guys have been great. And I eventually started to narrow down to this setup of modules you see here. So on the left-hand side, we've got a RFID/NFC aerial module, and that's able to talk to Android phones and iPhones and do the latest version of NFC for iPhones. In the middle there, we've got a 240 by 240 resolution, quite a high density resolution screen, and that turned out to be really important to be able to accurately read QR codes, because if the screen resolution is too low, your phone is going to see all the gaps between the pixels as individual squares, and it won't understand the QR code. But you go with a high density display like that, you'll be sweet. Also playing around with different processors, lots of ESPs and Raspberry Pis and that type of stuff. But the problem with most of them is that they're fairly large when you're talking about how much space you've got available on the price card slot on your apron. So I've ended up going with a much smaller little ESP32S30 is the version I've used. And just worked my way through, first of all, getting all the hardware to talk to each other, and then getting software like NFC debug sessions you see here, trying to get Android NFC and iOS NFC both working together and having that QR code fallback. So lots of error messages, lots of tearing my hair out, I think it shows, and lots of physical measuring of things like price card slots in games. So like, okay, if I want something that's going to sit on any pinball machine in that price card slot, well, first of all, I have to deal with probably 20 different variations of the actual cutouts for the price cards, because there's no standardization. And some games don't even have those slots. It's just flat metal, like Barrels of Fun, for example. And so my hardware also has to have little magnets on it that can just sit there by itself and not actually slot into anything. But, so over time, I've slowly worked the app to the point where it is actually able to do all the things I need it to do within the app, and talking to just a local service that I'm running. I think a lot of this at the time was actually still using the Node-RED backend, but more recently that whole server has been completely rewritten in Go, and it's really Codex has done 99.9% of that heavy lifting for me. It's literally taking the raw source code I did for Node-RED, a huge document I wrote up explaining in detail how the whole app should work, shove it into Codex, hit go, and sometime later it's going to actually spit out an app that does stuff. And there'll be a long process of debugging and fine-tuning that app to do it. As you can see here with the hardware as well, a long process of getting the right combination of hardware down to as small a profile as we can, something that can quite happily sit on quite a small 3D printed mount that will sit in the card slot, price card slot. And then it's wired through to another power supply and interface board that sits inside the cabinet. So it'll sit right next to the coin door. You can plug the existing coin mechanism straight into it if you've got a digital coin mech like a G13 or the other NRI type digital coin mechs, or if you're using old school analog mechanical coin mechs, we're just looking for that micro switch contact. So we'll literally just solder a couple of wires onto the micro switch. We'll use the diode that's already in line there, and instead of relying just on the coins falling past the switch, we can now also trigger exactly the same action from a relay from my Gametoken board. So I got a chap in Colombia, I think, on Fiverr to do some very basic circuit diagrams and circuit development for me, because I haven't done any PCB stuff myself before. So I took the wiring diagram and the mess of cables that I'd plugged together with chocolate blocks, got it working, says, right, this is functioning, give me a nice tidy version of this. And so he came back with these little boards. And then this is some of the UML diagrams, so the universal markup language, I think it is, but it's kind of a standardized way of describing the logical flow of a program, looking at each entity that's involved in the whole process, from the player, their app, the operator, the venue's app, the server. All these things kind of have to synchronize and talk to each other. And then eventually learning how to crimp tiny plugs, that's a great thing to learn. A very useful skill is getting those tiny little what do they call them, whatever brand of crimps, and the right combination of the tools to actually put them together. So I've slowly been getting better at that. But the longer term plan would be to be able to specify the individual components and have manufacturers in China who do the PCB manufacturer also put those components onto the board at the same time. And so the whole thing will just be a one-stop shop to order pre-made hardware kits that people will be able to buy from me and install straight in the machine and get it up and running straight away. But it is an open source project, and so you don't have to buy anything from me. You'll be able to download the hardware specs, the BOM, solder it all together yourself, run the server software yourself. But heck, if you've got a pinball arcade with 50 games, you're not going to want to solder together 50 bloody kits. And if you're not used to running web server software, then you don't really want to take on the effort of having a public-facing server that's handling your financial income. So we will be perfectly happy to lease you space on our server as well. So we can manage that for you, and we can sell you the pre-made kits ready to install. But at the end of the day, it is designed to be open source. We're not tying you into any long-term contracts or anything like that to use it. You can choose to use my server for as long as you want, and if you decide, no, let's just run it yourself, then great, download your data, run your own server, that's all cool. And whilst I don't have a pricing model established for it just yet, I'm looking at something really minimal, like $1 per machine per month as a base rate, and maybe like 1 cent per transaction or something like that, just as a very, very minor cost to you guys, just to pay the server hosting fees on my side, so I'm not losing money by it. But I also am acutely aware that there are other companies out there who offer tap and pay type products for pinball, and they're fairly predatory in their pricing, and so I want to try to upset that market somewhat. But here we have video of the first real transactions actually crediting up a pinball machine. And so this is my very basic hot melt glue onto cardboard mounting. But you can see, yes, it's sending data back and forth. It's working with QR codes, also working with NFC, tap and pay. And I am able to get the game to give me a credit on each one. And I'm also, you can see on this one on the right, I've got a free play pass going on there. So what I've done is created an app that allows you to buy tokens in whatever number that the operator decides to offer them in bundles at. And the operator can also choose to offer free play time-based, so it's by the minute, and they can be specified as 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 90, 60, 120, whatever period of time the operator wants to offer. They can price this themselves, put together the packages themselves, and then within the app, the user will be able to scroll through, see what pricing packages are available, hit the one they want, process a credit card transaction or maybe a Bitcoin Lightning transaction on their phone there and then. And then the nice thing is that those transactions are going straight to your account. So you as the operator would set up a Stripe account or whatever payment processor we choose to use. And within Stripe, people can choose to use maybe credit card or Apple Pay or Google Pay. You can also, I think, tie in other payment methods as well. So that opens up a wide range of payment methods for people. And they can do it all within the app. So they can just scan it on the game, punch numbers on the app. It pops up the payment prompt that comes directly from Stripe. And that's an important distinction because I am not processing that payment. I'm just handing that off to Stripe. And what Stripe then returned back to me is a receipt saying, yes, this transaction took place at this time with this unique identifier and all this other metadata. And I'm just taking that blob of metadata and I'm signing it with just open standard public key encryption. So I'm not trying to rewrite my own encryption methods or anything like that. I'm just using standard off-the-shelf public and private key encryption. So that we get a server-side signature saying, yes, the Gametoken server communicated to Stripe and we saw that this transaction took place. And at the same time, the user, the player, has just been interacting with their phone. So the app on their phone kicked off that Stripe transaction. The app also got the confirmation back from Stripe with that same metadata. And so it's the same transaction ID, the same timestamp, all that other same data. And so the user's app can also compile that same glob of data and digitally sign that. And it sends that signature back to my server. So at the back end, I now have 2 digital signatures and a metadata blob. And I can prove that both signatures are signing the same piece of metadata. So that's the key to the actual whole back end, this dual signature. So the reason why it's dual signature is because I don't want the ability to be able to log into the database and change players' balances. That opens up all sorts of issues, certainly from a legal and financial regulations point of view, because suddenly I would become the person who can, change people's balances and all that sort of stuff, and so I have to have, so it opens up the possibility of corruption. And so by having the player also sign that transaction means that if I were to go in there, change the database entry, sure, I can re-sign my end, but I'm not going to be able to force the app on your phone to be able to sign that same metadata. And so now we've got 2 signatures that don't match the same data, and that is certainly an invalid transaction, and that transaction would not be included at the time that the app is calculating your balance. So another important thing is that Gametoken does not keep a running balance of credits or free play passes for the customers. All we're doing is just storing all those transaction lines with those double signatures, and then the player's app will download all the transaction logs for that particular player, and in real time we'll calculate all the credits and debits and come up with a total of how much is left. And so, no balances held on the server, and dual signatures everywhere to prevent me from jumping in there and changing things myself. And so here we see the first installation of the new hardware onto a real game. And so at the moment, this is the only machine in the arcade that's running it, but Godzilla, you can tap and pay the NFC card, or you can scan the QR code and display the resulting receipt QR code to the little camera that's just below the screen there, or you can tap the NFC at that point and transfer it that way. And then on the right hand side you can see inside the cabinet. So this is just to the left, on the left side of the cabinet there. You can see my green Gametoken power and interface board at the bottom there. And then there's a little grey wire coming out of the green plug on the right hand side that is wired directly into the coin door node board pins on the machine. That's a really cool idea. Yeah. So plugging it into the plumb bob, yep, that's a definite possibility. And the great thing about it being open source is that, yeah, you guys can add those sort of features yourself. That's really cool. Yeah. But tell you what, the most frustrating thing of all about this is the NFC. It is so fragile. So I'm using Codex AI to do all the programming, and it's like Will Smith is eating spaghetti, but it's fragile glass spaghetti, because at any time the whole thing could just shatter into a million tiny pieces. And yeah, ChatGPT will quite happily spend a whole bunch of tokens trying to figure out, oh gosh, this is a horrible mess now. What can I do to tidy up this mess? And maybe add more code to work around all these other messes that I've made. It's just mess upon mess upon mess. So it's important to manage that whole process and pull it back when you see it's getting too far down some rabbit hole, saying, no, go back, read the original spec document, read how the behavior has to work, and then very carefully go through and think about every step. And feel free to delete all the code you've just written, because a lot of that code is just fluff upon fluff to try and fix these shattered bugs that you've made. So yeah, feel free to delete all what you've done for the last couple of days and start afresh. But as long as you've got that spec document that you can keep referring it back to, then you can keep it on track and hopefully not end up with too much broken glass spaghetti on your plate. So yeah, where we are now is we are close to launching it open source. It is, like I said, that NFC side of things is still very fragile. I'm not happy with the way that is running at the moment. I'm probably a few weeks away from kind of nailing that and getting it working reliably every single time you tap with Android or iOS. And it also has to handle what happens if you maybe leave the phone on the on the glass, and so it's constantly in communication with the NFC module. That's quite a handy thing, just be able to tap yes, had another credit, play the game, oh, that's done, hit another credit. Or it also has to handle you moving the phone off, tapping it, putting it back again. All of these things sort of cause different nightmare situations of NFC communications in the background. The phone is trying to take control of the whole system. The app is trying to grab back control of the NFC aerial from the operating system. It's this constant struggle and battle going on there. But the QR side of things is super basic and super easy, and it just works. So we'll stick with that for sure. But yeah, where we are at the moment is we are taking email addresses for our mailing list. So that QR code and Gametoken.app webpage, that's where it'll take you at the moment. And I will be putting out a big newsletter to everybody who signs up once we got something ready to launch. But yeah, we'll be launching open source hardware and software. So yeah, we're not tying you into any long-term contracts or anything like this. This is all just based on common standard protocols, common use sort of stuff. That we're not trying to reinvent anything here, but we're just putting together a combination of existing technologies in a reasonably unique way, and offering something pretty cool, I think, certainly for arcade operators who want to be able to offer a convenient alternative to coins or tokens. Nobody has coins in their pockets, and they're always getting jammed in the mechanisms and falling out through the reject slot and ending up on the floor, and people poking around the reject slot and not realizing it's under their foot. And yeah, there's just so many hassles with tokens and coins. We just want to get away from that. But really, we want to get new players to experience that free play buzz. It's like that room full of pinball machines, and it doesn't matter how many times the ball drains, because I've already paid for 2 hours. I'm just going to keep enjoying myself and not stress about coins at all. So that really gives people a quite a different first pinball experience to what you get if they're just putting in money constantly and thinking, oh shit, I really suck at this, and that ball just cost me 66 cents. But a lot of parents with young children, the kids won't have their own phones, and so there is a technology gap there. So the nice thing about the QR codes is that we can print out a QR code on a receipt paper, and that QR code can be valid for free play from now until whenever it expires, 30 minutes, 1 hour, whatever they're paid for. And so that way the kids can run around with that QR code in their pocket, place that on the game every time they want to credit up, and not have to, the parents don't have to lend their phone to them or anything like that. And there is security built in as well to prevent abuse, so people won't be able to go around and add a credit on every single game, or add 20 credits on one game. There'll be a cooldown period associated with all the free play passes, and that cooldown period is specified by the operator. It defaults to 1 minute, but it could be whatever number of seconds you want. So the idea is scan the QR code, and it's not going to allow any other transactions for another minute after that. But even that gets kind of tricky, because one thing I haven't mentioned is that my system is offline. So it's only using the customer's phone for the internet connectivity. So it means you can put a game into some dive bar where there's no Wi-Fi, as long as there's cell phone access and your customer's cell phone can do data, then their phone is what's talking to my server, or to the server, and it just hands back the signed digital receipt back to the game. So all the game needs to do is just read that receipt. It checks it against its own private key, and so it can know straight away if that signature is valid or not, which is not its own private key. What it does is the operator loads the operator's public key into the game hardware, and so the game hardware is able to validate that public key from the operator. So yeah, it's all public key encryption all the way down, turtles all the way down. But it means that it is a nice, reliable and secure protocol for doing these sort of payments when you don't necessarily have a game that's online. But and then how do we? Oh, question? Yeah.
So you've got someone there, say like, who's got them in the world, hold that.
Sure. Exactly. Well, brewery staff hate dealing with tokens, I can guarantee you that. Yeah. Yeah, there is an online payment in the app. Within the app, yes. That's right. Yep. So they can load up credits onto the app. No staff is required, but staff can still be involved, because not everybody's going to want to do that. If they've got cash in their pocket, they can walk up to the counter, hand them $20. The staff will have a phone or a tablet with the Gametoken at the counter, and that tablet has already, or that phone has already been authorized by the operator to be able to generate tokens on the operator's behalf. And so now the venue is able to say, yes, this person paid me $20. I've granted them 20 tokens or 10 tokens or whatever the price per token is set at, and all of that is logged and is reported at the end of the month or whenever the operator needs it. It's non-invasive and coins should still work. Yes, so this runs in parallel to the existing coin drop system. So yeah, in my case, I've got lots of customers who do just want to pop in briefly for 1 or 2 games, put in a $2 coin, do their thing, and not worry about committing themselves to 2 hours of being at the venue. But we want to be able to offer the best of both worlds to people. But yeah, we do have the situation though that if the young player has got a printed QR code, free play for the next 2 hours, and they go and tap a whole bunch of machines one after another, well, the machines aren't online. So how does the second machine know that they've just used it 2 seconds ago on the first machine? Bluetooth LE. So Bluetooth Low Energy has a beacon broadcast mode, and so when you use a free play pass on Gametoken, it will validate that pass first of all, and if it's all good, it'll close the relay, give you a credit, but it also broadcasts a little message over Bluetooth LE to any other devices that's within range that can hear it, which is going to be, several meter diameter radius for a whole bunch of machines, and it will broadcast saying, hey, this particular pass has just been used at this timestamp, and we're not allowed to accept any more for another 60 seconds. So now all the games around that machine know, hey, I'm not going to allow this pass for another 60 seconds, but there might be a whole bunch more games down the far end of the venue that didn't get that message. So the ESP module will, when it receives one of these messages, it will also wait for a random period of time and then rebroadcast it again. And so that way, if it goes from game 1 to say game 10, and then game 10 can reach game 20, and game 20 can reach game 30, within a few broadcasts you've got the entire establishment covered. So yeah, we tried our best to try and think of all the ways that the system could be broken and try to address those. Yeah.
When it's like, okay, yeah, you're using it here and you've got that time running out, or they're using, like, say, barcode on a receipt, is there any way for them to see why it's being rejected? Like on the screen, does it say, like,
Yeah,
time remains timed out sort of thing?
Yes, so on that screen where the QR code is displayed, yeah, we can certainly use it for those types of messages. It's not programmed in there at the moment, but yeah, it's definitely as possible, because the ESP would see that message coming in. It would knows the status of that free play pass already. It has a running list of all the current passes, and say, hey, no, you're not able to use this for another 30 seconds or whatever it is. Yeah, so that sort of thing can be easily added. And again, one of the reasons why I want to make this open source is so that people like yourself can add these really cool features that I didn't necessarily think of, and just keep improving and growing the system. I originally planned to just release the Node-RED code as the open source server backend and say, there you go, world, do what you want with this, and hopefully somebody will sit down and spend a few months writing in some proper server code. But then AI came along and did all that for me, so it's like, thank you very much, AI. We will use you for coding because you're really, really good at that. We won't use you to generate images of Will Smith eating spaghetti because it always ends up messy, but yeah, for the presentation, it's useful to get a point across. But yeah, so that's the page on the right-hand side kind of sums up everything I wanted to do with this. So if you're operating games on location, you want to avoid the coin and token pain points, the jammed coin mix, the lack of coins in people's pockets, the staff having to deal with handing out coins, having to go to the bank and get coins, you as the operator having to come around and empty out all the coins and hand back some chunk of those back to the venue. It's a lot of hassle. Let's just do all that digitally. Have a receipt, have a report that pops out automatically every month. This is how many games were purchased at this venue. This is what the venue owes you for their money that they've received. This is how many games were purchased directly in the app, and so the money didn't go through the venue at all, but chances are, depending on your agreement with the venue, you probably owe them a portion of that coin drop, and so the venue can see that report, you can see that report, so everybody can agree, yes, I owe you this money, and you owe me this money. Cancels out, and there's, you guys just sort out whatever you need to sort out, but that's done outside of the Gametoken app. So again, I'm not trying to be the middleman who hands out the money to the operators at a drip feed rate depending on the status of your account. I just take a step back. I don't touch any of that finance at all. The only money I'm asking is if you want me to host the service for you, I'm just going to charge you that really tiny fee just to cover my costs. But this is definitely not a money-making scheme on my part. This is for the purpose of getting more people playing pinball in a free play environment and getting them hooked early so that they're going to keep coming back. After a while, they're going to get good enough that the $30 they spend for 30 minutes or whatever it is, they realize, oh, actually, if I just pay for it game by game, my games are lasting like 5-6 minutes now, so it's better value for money just to buy tokens, buy the virtual tokens rather than buying the virtual free play passes. that's when I know that I've won, because I've turned them from a newbie kind of experimenting with pinball into somebody who knows what they're doing, knows that they're good enough to be able to just pay per game and realize that value model. But the other person I've made the system for is the home collector. You've got a bunch of pinball machines in your house, but you don't have any room to buy new machines, to put new machines. What do? You don't want to sell any of these because you love these titles. You're going to want to keep coming back to them for decades. So put one down at your local bar. They can get the benefit of having pinball, but you don't want to impose upon them all the hassle of dealing with coins and tokens and all that other shit that we just talked about. So the venue staff will appreciate the ease of the system. If they do need to sell any tokens, they're just hitting a couple of buttons on their app. It's done super quick. They don't have to go down to the bank and get coins out. And it means that you're going to have more room at your house to buy more pinball machines. By the way, I also sell pinball machines, so this is actually just a long con to sell more games. Question? Not quite, no, because we're not changing the logic in the game itself. We're just giving you the ability to add more credits for that time period, with the understanding that it is rate limited. And so if the operator sticks with that default 60-second cooldown period between taps, then if you buy an hour's worth of free play, you're effectively buying as much as 60 games of pinball. And if you go through all 60 games, then you really suck at pinball. But that is sort of the inbuilt maximum there. So yeah, we're not extending the length of game time for an individual game that's being played. We're not reprogramming the number of balls that the game is going to spit out for that game. We're just making it easy to add another credit when that game is ended. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Kids will just press the start button on everything.
Yes, yeah.
And then it's got constant noise, just aiding in the one kid that puts the noise.
That's right, yep. Yep, and people don't want to walk up to a game that's already started like that, because they assume that, oh, okay, there's somebody maybe just gone to get a drink or gone to the loo and he's going to be back in a second. They're going to be really annoyed at me if I've stolen their game. So they maybe have to hang around waiting for a couple of minutes just to be doubly sure that nobody's going to come back. Yeah, it's a hassle, yeah. Yeah, well, the auto plunge on a timer is really the right solution to that. But then if you're running tournaments, you don't want to have a timed auto plunge, because chances are that one time that the person has gone to the loo on their break, yeah, the last thing you want is their game to be plunged. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So it means that you can run, say, a tournament where people they're paying a flat rate for entry and they're not expecting to put coins in, and at the same time everybody else in the arcade can be putting in coins as usual, but for those group of people who are in the tournament, they would have printed QR codes or maybe something in the app that says, hey, this is the situation for the next 5 hours, you get free play. Yeah. And again, it's open source, so hey, if you come up with awesome ideas like that, describe in detail how you want that process to work to AI, and AI will implement it for you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest, because in New Zealand there's really only one operator offering that service. A couple of my colleagues have used that, and they've found that it was not economical to keep running. They paid, I think, several $100s for the hardware that goes on the front of the machine. They're paying a big monthly fee to the provider. They're paying a big chunk of every transaction to that provider, and also the provider is holding on to those funds and only dishing them back out to the operator whenever they feel is appropriate. So yeah, Tilted Kiwi. So the Gametoken turns that whole model on its head. It puts the operator in control of everything, especially for the financial channels. And so, if a user buys tokens on the app, those funds are going straight to your account. It's not going through Tilted Kiwi Labs. It's not going through the old pinball shop. It's just going to you. Even if I'm hosting the server side, again, those transactions are not going through, the financial transactions not going through my server. It's just the signed digital receipts that I'm storing, and all the Gametoken transactions go through the server. So yeah, I'm completely reliant on third parties to provide all the finance back end, and I just take their receipts. I trust that whatever they're giving me is valid, and as long as you guys trust them as well, then we can rely on that trust model. And again, the player's app has digitally signed the transaction as well, independent of everything that I've done. So whatever I do on the database, as soon as I change some line, it's going to invalidate that whole transaction because those signatures won't match anymore.
I'm curious. You said obviously the nonetheless is offline, no connectivity, but there's some preloaded keys.
That's right.
Setting up. Is there a case where you may run out of used keys and need to update that?
No. So the onboarding process from an operator's point of view is they would get the hardware. Once the hardware is installed, it will boot up, and if it hasn't been configured yet, it will just generate its own public-private key pair internally. It will display the public key as a QR code, and the operator will use their app to read that key and essentially onboard that machine in the on the server using that public key. If a player walked up and scanned the machine at that point, the machine is not configured yet, so their QR code is just going to display this hexadecimal address. Their phone is not going to react to that at all. It's just going to pop up saying, oh yeah, this is the message inside that QR code. I'm not going to do anything with it. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's not an HTTP address. It's not a Gametoken : address. It's not some app address. So it's just going to show that as text. But from the operator's app, it will expect that format of text. It recognizes that as a public key, and so it will then prompt the operator to enter the name of the game and also the price in tokens for 1 credit on that game, and then the server will take that data and sign it, and then present it back to the operator. The operator then presents that signed receipt as a QR code back to the Gametoken hardware. The Gametoken hardware sees this incoming message that has its public key embedded in it, and also a nonce, a number used once, so you can't replay that same transaction because it's going to change that number used once every time. Nonce, number only used once or something other. Yeah. And so that's the way of, if you've got, say, your address and you want to sign it, every time you sign it, it's always going to be exactly the same. And so somebody could record that transaction and then spit that same data back, and because every time you sign is always going to be exactly the same data, the game would accept it. But using a nonce, a number that only uses once, it just adds that number to the end of the message, and now if you change that, every time it creates a new payment request, it's going to change that number. And so if you use an old response, it says, no, that nonce doesn't match, I'm not going to reject that. But there is the edge case. Actually, you bring up a good point. There is the edge case of somebody who does the QR scan and agrees to spend that credit, but then maybe they get a phone call, they have to walk away, blah, blah, blah. Oh shit, they don't have time to come actually play the game, so they've already spent the credit in the app, but they never presented that receipt back to the game. So the game doesn't know that a transaction took place because it never saw the receipt. So the game is sitting there, still broadcasting its request for payment, still got that same nonce. Player 2 walks up and scans it. Now the server sees that, okay, I've just got a second request the second request from the same nonce, because the game has still got that same nonce. It doesn't know that the transaction is taking place. So it's the same nonce for the same machine, but from a different player. Okay, well, we'll let them do that credit and we'll sign that receipt. But it means that the server now knows that the first transaction never completed. And so it knows that it can refund player one. It can refund player one because player two had exactly the same payment request. So that means that player one never completed that payment transaction. So that's the built-in backup there in case you... Every completed transaction, the QR code will be unique, and it is cryptographically signed as well, so you can confirm these at every step of the process. That does, but we're not in the situation where we need to refund free play credits, because those free play credits were only ever going to last for 1 hour or whatever that time period was. But if you've actually been spending virtual tokens, we do need to keep track of each token and be able to refund it if it's not actually been used up. Yeah. Yes, so the venue will have the ability to refund, and so that could be individual credits, or it could be, hey, they sold this person an hour's free play, 15 minutes later, for whatever reason, they've had to leave. Can I get a refund on the 45 minutes I haven't used? Sure, the venue has the ability to do that. It's up to the venue's policy as to whether they will actually honour that request. I'm not going to try and dictate how the venue should handle those refund requests, but yeah, the ability is in the system for them to refund it, and they would need to enter a reason why it was refunded, because the operator is going to see that there was a transaction for $30 and then $20 of those dollars were refunded. It's like the operator's thinking, shit, okay, what happened to the other $20? Why aren't I getting my share of that? Oh, there's an entry in here saying player left after 10 minutes. Okay, I understand. That's why that was refunded. Question?
I've just been very confused and playing Pinball at when they do it on side machines. And they have a thing where like, you scan it and it goes to the website and token to who are the limits of that. You could scan the website.
Yeah, that's really cool. They would have hardware in there, and I'm not familiar with that system, but I'm guessing that system has Wi-Fi in that hardware, and so the game is online and it's actively talking to the internet. But it's kind of a large attack surface to leave in a game like that. It's like if you're a skilled pen tester and you've got a powerful laptop that can do all sorts of Wi-Fi trickery, yeah, it makes for an inviting target to try and fuck around with. Whereas, yeah. Right. Gotcha. Yeah, so that's a really, really cool system as well, and I'm glad that there's lots of other options coming on the market now, because the age of coins is gone. we need to get away from that, and so yeah, the system that Neverworld is using is really cool. I'm just too goddamn cheap. I don't want to be spending money on third-party services to do this sort of stuff, and it's like, oh no, I can figure out how to do this myself, and sure enough I did. But it kind of got a little bit out of hand, and it's turned into its own company, Tilted Kiwi Labs Limited. So yeah, Gametoken is the first product I'm doing. There will be other products, including ways to increase engagement for players to share stuff on social networks, and also ways for tournament directors to keep games at a reasonable time. But speaking of time, my time is up, so I have got a stand in the main area. I've got some hardware that we can demo, and you'll see little lights turning on and little beeps when the multimeter says.
I think that when you asked me, you asked me if we could use one of my games.
Yes. Yeah.
Is my game getting used?
No, it's not, because I was going to have a technician on hand to install the whole system while I'm doing the presentation, just to show everybody, hey, this is so easy, how quick it is. I don't have a nice, tidy solution for the card apron mount, and so it's like, okay, it's going to look a little bit messy and stuff like that. Oh, well, roll around and we'll install it on in front of the desk. Yeah. Cool. But yeah, that is my time. So thank you very, very much for coming. And yeah, watch this space. So sign up on our website. And once I've got the release ready to go, I'll be sending out a big email to everybody with all the documentation, and we'll go from there. Thank you.